So, brothers, this basically is going to cement the correlation between E.T. and the quote-unquote character of Peter Pan, who himself was an allusion to the character of Pan, or PTAH-MIN per se, the quote-unquote god of man-boy love. There's a reason why Steven Spielberg had the mother read that story to Gertie over the course of this film, because they're trying to help you understand that that is who E.T. is. E.T. comes from quote-unquote Neverland, i.e. Saturn. That is what Saturn is. Saturn is Neverland. Saturn is Oz, whatever you want to call it, Wonderland. All those fantastical realms, they're speaking about the realm of the inner mind that you can travel to through your pineal gland once you open it up, the quote-unquote 0-point energy. That is how Elliot was able to bring E.T. from Neverland into the quote-unquote physical world. But the story of Peter Pan is also an MK Ultra programming tool. And I'll probably be expounding on this more in the epilogue. But the actress Drew Barrymore is a monarch child. She was raised up in the programming. She comes from a quote-unquote acting family. So, and anyone can tell this, especially by the multitude of issues that have basically befallen her over the course of her life, that she's someone who struggles with reality. Because for the most part, she's never grown up in the real world. She's always grown up in pseudo realities that have been implanted in her mind. That's why she's had so many troubles. But let's go through this scene here and let's see the connection that is made between the story of Peter Pan and the story of E.T.
Peter says the Redskins were defeated. Wendy and the boys captured by the pirates. I'll rescue her. I'll rescue her.
And J.M. Barrie, the writer of Peter Pan, was a Luciferian himself.
He leaps first at his egg and then at his grindstone to sharpen it. Tinka lights near the shell and rings out a warning cry. Oh, that is just my medicine, she says.
Notice how Steven Spielberg has E.T. listening very intently as the mother reads the story of Peter Pan to her child, to Gertie.
Poisoned? Who could have poisoned it? I promised we would take it, and I will as soon as I have sharpened my egg. Tink, who sees its growing color, remembers the red in the pirate's eye, nobly swallows the draught as Peter's hand is reaching for it. Why, Tink, you have drunk my medicine. She flutters strangely. Answered him very quickly. Ouch! It was poison. Ouch! Drank it to save my life.
Now Elliot has hurt himself. He scratches his finger on that saw blade because they're trying to build a two-way radio, or really the spell casting mechanism that they're going to use to open up that portal so that E.T.'s his cohorts can come and assist him. This is the first point in the movie where E.T. illuminates his magic wand, which he can use to heal. Notice that Steven Spielberg has this event occur as the mother is reading the story about Peter Pan. We know that Tinkerbell is a fairy. She has a magic wand as well. She has pixie dust that can be used to assist anyone who believes hard enough that they can do anything, that they can heal themselves, that they can fly, so on and so forth.
She thinks she could get well again if children believed in fairies. Do you believe in fairies, Sacred? Did you believe? I do. If you believe.
Notice right after E.T. has healed Elliot, now the mother is speaking about the fairy and the importance of quote-unquote belief. The concept of the fairy is based on the belief in what they call elementalism, or elementals. The fairy is supposed to represent a certain prime element. Of course, those being fire, air, water, earth, and the fifth element, that being the ether, or quote-unquote space. But just to get back to the point, the fairy has the power to heal using her magic wand. She has the power to grant wishes. You just have to believe.
Clap your hands. Really clap some, don't a few hiss. And perhaps there is a rush of wind. Tink is safe. Thank you.
The mother in this scene is actually just reinforcing the programming that's already been embedded within Drew Barrymore. The mother here is a programmer, i.e. handler. The young girl says, "Can you read it to me again?" She wants the programming reinforced.
Peter says,
Once again, brothers, these films always have subliminal programming and supraliminal programming. Supraliminal programming, or a supraliminal message, is the overt message that they want you to grasp on a basic level. The subliminal program is what they're teaching you through the back door, what you're going to receive without you knowing it. Okay, so now we're going to pick up at really is the crux of this film, or the turning point in this film, that being Halloween night. Halloween is what's known as a quote-unquote liminal holiday. As I've already addressed the concept of liminality, basically it's the concept of the threshold, the crossing over from one state of being into another state of being, or the crossing over from one dimension into another dimension. Halloween is known as a liminal holiday, in the same way that the time of 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. is known as a liminal time period. It's viewed as a day in which portals are opened, in which spirits can cross over into the physical world, and the reverse can occur as well. And this is what we're going to see within this film. As I've already stated, Elliot's mother, and Elliot is NEFERTEM, or Harpocrates. She plays Bastet, or Sekhmet, the quote-unquote cat goddess. Et is PTAH, or PTAH-MIN, the father of NEFERTEM. That's why I state that Et is meant to replace the father that Elliot has lost. As we can see here, the mother chooses to dress up as a gigantic cat woman on Halloween. That's on purpose. The costumes of all the characters that we see on Halloween are on purpose. Not only is she dressed up as a cat in the leopard print, but she also has the magic wand as well to show you that she is the quote-unquote goddess of witchcraft. Remember, Bastet was just another aspect of Isis, or Aset, the mother goddess of witchcrafts. So on Halloween, we're going to see Elliot is dressed up as a spirit, as a ghost. Why is that? Because this is going to be the night where E.T. is going to show him how to ascend to a higher level when it comes to his spiritual powers as a witch. So let's see what happens here.
be back 1 hour after sundown, no later.
E.T. checking out. E.T.'s checking out Bastet. Remember, Bastet was also the goddess of sensuality as well. Oh, I want some of that pussycat. Oh, be good.
Bye.
Now, brothers, I'm not quite sure if you can see it, but the older brother Michael is dressed up in fatigue pants. That's because he represents another aspect of Harpo, or Harpocrates, the quote-unquote god of war. As Heru, he is the god of war. I did a video pertaining to Isis Lactans, or the goddess with the divine milk, the milk of knowledge. And I believe that it was an issue of Newsweek, either Time Magazine or Newsweek, where it showed a woman breastfeeding a young boy who represented Horus, or Heru, from the left breast, and he also had on army fatigue pants. The army fatigue pants are just meant to denote him as the quote-unquote god of war. And you brothers probably cannot see it, but the older brother's also carrying a bag with the white horse, the horse of death, on it. So, brothers, here's another still photo of Elliot and Michael and E.T. departing on their way to quote-unquote celebrate Halloween, really engage in a witchcraft ritual to open up a portal so that E.T. can communicate with, with his fellow spirits. But just pay very close attention. Look at the bag that Michael is carrying. He has the quote-unquote white horse, or white unicorn, on it, the psychopomp, or the spirit guide, the steed that helps you go from the natural realm, or the physical realm, to the spiritual realm. When I did the video on Nipsey Hussle, who killed Nipsey Hussle and why, I showed you in that video that the mother goddess, whether you call her Selene, the moon goddess, or even Epona, the horse goddess, or Demeter, the mother goddess of the harvest, they would often be depicted riding on the quote-unquote white horse, because the white horse, once again, is the means of transportation to signify death, meaning going from the natural world or the physical world to the spiritual world. On this night, Halloween, Elliot and E.T. are going to perform a ritual that opens up a portal from the physical world to the spiritual world. Here's another still shot where you see the older brother Michael carrying the quote-unquote bag with the white horse on it. And as we can see, he has on the fatigue pants, and then the rest is all black. And the man has a damn knife through his head to show you what? He's supposed to be a quote-unquote warrior. He is Heru or Harpo, or really Heru as an adult, Horus as an adult, the quote-unquote falcon god, the god of war. With Elliot here done up as a spirit because he's about to take a trip or take a sneak peek into the spiritual realm that night. Okay, so brothers, now we're up to the point in the film where Elliot and E.T. are entering the quote-unquote forest or the woods so that they can initiate their ritual. But of course, in the film, they can't do that directly because it's going to become too obvious what the movie is actually about. So in an analogy form, they're going to have E.T. create a piece of machinery so that he can quote unquote communicate with his home planet, which actually is the spirit realm or the spirit world. But watch as E.T. instructs Elliot, because E.T. is Pan. He's going to instruct his lead witch on the powers of witchcraft. The bicycle, and we're going to see this later on in the film, the bicycle is just meant to be an analogy or a metaphor for the witch's broomstick. That's why they fly on it on Halloween. So let's see what happens. Once again, brothers, Halloween is a time period of great significance in the witchcraft circles. This film is about witchcraft. Elliot is a witch. E.T. is Pan. Right now on Halloween, they are flying on the quote-unquote bicycle, which is supposed to be a metaphor for the broomstick. That's all this is. Elliot is experiencing the power of being fully illuminated for the first time. He's experiencing the power of witchcraft for the first time. As I tell you, brothers, incessantly on this channel, the quote-unquote god of the entertainment industry is Pan. Okay, so that's why they make these movies constantly about this entity, and they have to do it surreptitiously. They cannot do it overtly. Another thing, PTAH-MIN. Min or manes or men is another term for the moon god. And we're going to hear E.T. referred to repeatedly over the course of this film as the quote-unquote man in the moon. The concept of the man in the moon comes from the coming together of Pan and Selene, the moon goddess. Pan had an affair with Selene. He had intercourse with Selene. That's where you get the concept of the man in the moon. Selene is the moon. Pan is the male deity, quote-unquote deity, who inseminated her, who had intercourse with her. So whenever you hear that concept of the man in the moon, that's talking about Pan. And of course, Manes means the numberer or the moon god. So that's all an allusion, once again, to the power of witchcraft or PTAH-MIN. That is who E.T. is in this film. Notice that he crashed. The reason why they crashed is because E.T. is starting to get weak. E.T. is getting weak at this point because he's losing his spiritual power. He has to get back to the spiritual realm. We see the bicycle here damn near totaled. Once again, the bicycle is nothing but a witch's broomstick. That's it. Here's Elliot's mother, Bast or Bastet, the mother of NEFERTEM, the quote-unquote cat goddess. She's awaiting him on Halloween because she's concerned. Once again, the mother represents Bastet. So, brothers, we moved ahead. E.T. and Elliot they're out in the woods, in the proverbial grove, and they're trying to utilize the powers of witchcraft to assist E.T. in communicating with his quote-unquote home planet, aka the spiritual dimension, the spiritual realm. For those of you who read the scriptures or who have done even just rudimentary studies, especially in the veneration of the mother goddess or the quote-unquote horned god, those rituals always take place out in the woods. So this is just an analogy. This is a metaphor that they're using to make what is transpiring on film more palatable for regular people. But as I've stated, they've been trying to promote witchcraft in films and on television for a long time now. Of course it's working. E.T. is the master craftsman, the master builder. He is Ogun, spelled O as in Oscar, G as in George, U as in umbrella, N as in Nancy, aka Pata or Fasties. Some people listening to this might say, what are you talking about? How can he be all those different people? What I'm talking about is those are just different names for the same entity, known as Pata. Listen to how excited Elliot is. Supposedly, E.T. is your best friend, right? Allegedly, that's your best friend. But you're that excited that you were able to open up some type of communication with his home planet, which presumably is going to mean that he's going to leave you. So why would you be that excited unless what's actually occurring in the film is not just that he's communicating with wherever he's from, is that Elliot and E.T. have made contact. They've been able to open up another portal and, gain greater insight, gain greater spiritual power. Elliot is a witch. He's a wizard in training. That's all he is. Okay, so now that Elliot has realized the ramifications of the success of the spell that they cast, he realizes that soon his tether, aka E.T., his spirit guide or his psychopomp, is going to be leaving him. So now he's going to make a desperate attempt to try to prompt PTAH-MIN or Pan or E.T. to stay with him. Let's see how things go.
We could be happy here. I could take care of you. I wouldn't let anybody hurt you. We could grow up together, E.T.
Now, brothers, did you hear that? Elliot says we could grow up together, which is implying that E.T. is not fully grown. He's not an adult, at least according to his species. That's how you know, once again, he is quote-unquote Peter Pan. He's the quote-unquote entity, the deity who will never grow up. He's going to be young forever. And he's able to surround himself with a retinue of lost boys, a.k.a. witches, a.k.a. pederasty victims. E.T.'s ready to go home. Okay, so brothers, we've reached the scene which is pretty much building up to the final conflict in the film. The mother is going to, of course, she's going upstairs now. She's going to approach her oldest son. And the oldest son understands that he must tell her about PTAH-MIN or Pan, aka E.T. He must tell her because due to the fact that Elliot and E.T., and you get it, Elliot, E.T., due to the fact that they're tethered, they have a spirit tie or a soul tie. Whatever it is that E.T. is going through, Elliot is also going through. So now they have E.T. laid out on the bathroom floor. He has to tell his mother about it so that hopefully she will assist them. He's going to try to get her to swear or pledge in the same way that Elliot got him to swear or pledge. And let's pay very close attention to the difference between how she responds to that request as opposed to how he responded. We're also going to pay very close attention to what Drew Barrymore calls E.T.
Mom, won't you come with me? What is it?
Here, just come with me.
Michael, what?
Mom, remember the goblin?
Michael, what are you talking about?
Just swear the most excellent promise you can make.
Michael.
Remember when Elliot made Michael swear, he swore. Now, when Michael tries to make the mother swear, she will not swear. Why is that? Because she's an adult. The story of Peter Pan basically is that adults are not trustworthy, that they're not capable of going to Neverland. They've lost the ability to imagine. They've lost the ability to tap into that 0 point energy or the third eye energy unless they're fully committed.
That's terrific.
We're sick.
Elliot states that we're sick. Once again, brothers, it's the same concept as the movie Us. They're tethered. Remember in the film Us, whatever the person above ground would do or in the physical realm would do, the tether was forced to do as well.
I think we're dying.
Michael, Mom, it's okay.
Downstairs.
It's not gonna hurt you, Mom.
He's not gonna hurt you.
Michael, get her downstairs.
Man from the moon.
Brothers, you heard that? Drew Barrymore's character calls the character of E.T. or PTAH-MIN the quote-unquote man from the moon. He is Min or Mayonnaise, aka PTAH-MIN, the man from the moon. Pan, after he has been able to, confirm his relationship with Celine. If you research the slogan or the phrase, the man from the moon, that is where it comes from. It comes from Pan making love to or having intercourse with Celine, the moon goddess. So the mother, aka the intervention of the adult, is able to break the soul tie or the tether, or is trying to break the tether between Elliot and E.T. E.T. looked like he needed he needed a shower and he needs some lotion. God damn, he ashy. Okay, so brothers, in this scene, Steven Spielberg, as well as some of the actors, particularly the actor who plays the older brother of Elliot, is going to delve into the concept of E.T. and Elliot being tethered together. Michael's going to be asked a question by one of the scientists. For those of you who don't know, who have not seen the film at this point, E.T. has been captured by the quote-unquote scientists who seek to find out about him and about his world. And the family is being questioned. They're asking Michael about the connection between E.T. and Elliot. Let's pay very close attention to what's being said.
Did it ever build anything or write anything down?
No.
You say it has the ability to manipulate its own environment?
He's smart. He communicates through Elliot.
He said that E.T. communicates through Elliot.
Elliot thinks its thoughts.
No, Elliot feels his feelings.
Elliot feels the feelings of E.T., aka they are tethered together. E.T. is just the spirit world aspect or the spirit world entity that was conjured into the physical world by Elliot through the illumination of his third eye, which was represented by one of the opening sequences of the film where E.T. emerged out of the shed, which was a portal, as I've already illustrated.
No deficits on FNF and HPS testing. EEG analysis shows complete coherence and synchronization of brainwave activity between both subjects.
Now, the quote-unquote scientist or the doctor just stated that the EKG analysis shows complete synchronization and brainwave activity between both subjects. So once again, they've been tethered, particularly according to the quote-unquote third eye. It's based on the concept of Janus. Now, brothers, in this film, other than the mother of Elliot, there's only one adult of note who garners any level of respect. That being the quote-unquote good scientist played by Peter Coyote, who's also a Buddhist in real life, for those of you who don't know. This is a scene in which, once again, there seems to be some type of implication that when he was a child, he also was able to communicate with the entity known as ET or PTAH-MIN as well. In this still shot that we're looking at, ET turns and looks directly into the face of the quote-unquote good scientist played by Peter Coyote. And let's listen very close to what Peter Coyote's character tells Elliot subsequent to him making direct eye contact with ET.
Get a Doppler scope in here and set me up for a 2D cardiac echo.
Skin is cool and diaphoretic. Consider all shock etiology.
He's not perfusing at all. He needs inotropic support.
pH is down to 7.03. He's got a metabolic acidosis. It could be sepsis.
We've drawn 2 sets of blood cultures.
He needs broad spectrum coverage. How about Amgen Flagyl?
Elliot, I've been to the forest.
In other words, he's been to the grove. He's been to the site of the ritual.
Shouldn't talk now. Well, he has to talk now, Major. Elliot, that machine, what does it do? Working. It's doing something. What?
I really shouldn't tell. He came to me. He came to me.
Now, brothers, isn't that strange? The quote-unquote good scientist, he asked Elliot about the machine that they have out in the woods and what does it do? And as opposed to Elliot just saying that it's a communicator, he says, I really shouldn't tell. Why is that? Because it's very similar to the machine at the end of the film Avengers. Remember the original Avengers film that came out in 2012? They had the scientist, I believe his name was Dr. Zellwig or something along those lines. And Loki put him under mind control and had him create a machine that would open up a portal so that the aliens could come through and attack New York City. That's basically the machine that E.T. and Elliot built out there in the woods to open up a quote-unquote Stargate.
Elliot, he came to me too.
Brothers, did you hear that? The adult here says that E.T. came to him as well. Obviously, he's talking about back when he was a child. Now he's an adult. That's why Steven Spielberg had that little brief scene where E.T. and this person here made eye contact with one another. And E.T. seemed to have recognized him because he was one of the quote-unquote lost boys of E.T. back when he was young. And he was able to open up his third eye or his understanding, his 0-point energy, so that he could communicate with him as well.
I've been wishing for this since I was 10 years old. I don't want him to die.
Obviously, once again, he was able to communicate with E.T. when he was 10 years old. And it's so strange. Nobody else, or I've never seen anyone else mention this. The fact that it's very obvious that this adult character here also had an interaction with E.T., which means what? He's not really a physical being. He's a spiritual being.
What can we do that we're not already doing?
He needs to go home.
He needs to go back to the spirit world. That's what he needs to do. That's why they have to open up that portal. Okay, so brothers, now we're at the point in the film where the character of E.T., aka PTAH-MIN or Pan, or Asar, Osiris, whatever you want to call this entity, has expired. They were able to break the tether or break the link up between Elliot and E.T., and that caused the death of E.T., aka PTAH-MIN. So now Elliot, also known as NEFERTEM, is basically going to pray over his dead body and hope to bring him back to life, hope to revive him. So let's see what happens here.
must be dead. Because I don't know how to feel.
Now, Elliot, aka NEFERTEM, has just stated that E.T., aka PTAH-MIN or Pan, must be dead because he does not know how to feel. So in other words, once again, that link up between the two has been fractured, it's been broken. There's no longer the tether there. There's no longer the quote unquote soul tie there.
I can't feel anything anymore. You're going someplace else now. I believe in you all my life. Every day.
Elliot states that he will quote unquote believe in E.T. all of his life every day. Why would you have to believe in something that you saw in the flesh? Unless this is meant to be a metaphor for something else. It's meant to be a metaphor for a quote unquote spiritual belief. Or in all actuality, a mystery school belief. That being the veneration of the great demiurge, Ptah. That's what this is about.
E.T. I love you.
So now we see that Elliot has closed the casket. But as he's closing the casket, right after he says to E.T. that he loves him, that is when the quote-unquote heart inside of E.T.'s chest starts to beat again. We know that, as I've stated in the past, the heart was of the utmost significance in the Kemetic Babylonian mystery school system. The heart represents the sun. So now as Elliot walks out, he notices that the vegetation in the room, the flower, the chrysanthemums and the geraniums are starting to bloom again, which symbolizes E.T.'s rebirth, or him being brought back to the land of the living.
Phone home. Home. Does this mean they're coming?
Yes. Yes. Oh man, why E.T. sound like Young Jeezy? Yeah. Oh man, this movie is such a trip. So now, of course, Elliot is going to greet his brother with the news that, quote unquote, E.T. has risen from the grave. He's alive. In all actuality, E.T. exists within the subconscious of Elliot. Once again, E.T. is the quote-unquote god of vegetation, Tammuz, or Pan. Pan is the woodland god. That's why, as I've already mentioned, there's definitely a theme in the film of being gentle to animals. I mean, as you should anyway. You should have a respect for nature. But Ptah venerates the animals. And that's why you see such a concerted push in this society, in this time period that we're living in today, for veganism. If you pay attention, it's everywhere. They're saying stay away from meat, stay away from fish, stay away from doing anything even remotely harmful to animals. It's not just because of a respect for nature, quote unquote. It's really to show a veneration of the animals because they venerate the quote unquote god of the animals, that being Shiva, aka PTAH-MIN or Pan. And as I've already stated, we're going to go through it after this video. The organization known as PTAH is just meant to be an allusion to the quote-unquote nature god Ptah. Okay, so brothers, we're near the portion of the film that pretty much is going to be the crescendo. But the build up to the crescendo will be Elliot's mother attempting to head him off at the pass as he attempts to rendezvous at the Stargate or the portal with E.T., aka PTAH-MIN, in tow, and the rest of the Witch Coven, aka his older brother and their friends. Well, the quote unquote good adult male in the film, played by Peter Coyote, is going to inquire of the mother where is she going, because she has been told by the young daughter that Elliot, as well as Michael, his older brother, have taken E.T. back to the forest so that once again he can go back through the portal, through the Stargate, to the spirit world. Just pay very close attention to what Gertie, or Drew Barrymore's character Gertie, states about E.T. and where he's from, what she calls him.
Where are you going?
To the spaceship.
Spaceship.
To the spaceship. To the moon.
Quiet.
Once again, remember previously in the film, Gertie refers to E.T. as the quote unquote man in the moon. Now she's saying that he's going to take the quote unquote spaceship to the moon. Why is that? Because as PTAH-MIN, he is the quote unquote moon god. He's also the woodland god as Pan. As I already stated, the term man in the moon comes from the consummation in the relationship between Pan and Selene, the moon goddess.
Oh my God.
Dude said, oh my God, I'm about to lose E.T. again. I'm about to lose PTAH-MIN again. He was supposed to help me with my witchcraft. Okay, so now brothers, at this point, E.T. and Elliot and Michael, basically they have escaped. They rendezvous with the rest of the Witch Coven, aka E.T.'s disciples, aka the Lost Boys. And let's just pay very close attention to the imagery that is used here for E.T. to reinforce the quote-unquote Christ complex, or the martyr complex that is imbued upon E.T. The reinvigorated or the reborn quote-unquote God, aka PTAH-MIN or Asar or what have you. Now, brothers, do you see this? It appears as if E.T. is emerging out of the cave, reborn, a la Christ. This is clearly what Steven Spielberg was trying to allude to, that E.T. was a quote-unquote Christ figure. Now, when you study the quote-unquote deity Pan, he was one of the top deities of the ancient world until the rise of Christianity in the 1st century AD. As a matter of fact, there was a statement made by an historian during that time period that Pan died in the 1st century AD because of the popularity of the growing movement to worship or venerate Christ, at least in the 1st century AD, which was the time period where you had the real church, not the quote-unquote Catholic Church that existed after the time of Constantine. But just to get back to the point, it's very obvious here that how they're depicting E.T. is meant to be a mockery of and also an alignment with Christ. They're trying to project E.T. as a Christ figure. You see how he has the white linen garment on and he's emerging out of the cave to show that he's been reborn? Hey brothers, remember this dude from Soul Man? In the mid 80s, there was a movie in the mid 80s called Soul Man, where this person here, I can't quite remember his name. He basically plays a Caucasian dude who he starts to dress up like a black dude. I mean, it's so bugged out. They would never make this movie today or that movie today, but then again, you never know. I just remember that as a kid, Soul Man, starring this guy here.
He's a man from outer space, and we're...
So now, of course, after the rest of the Witch Coven, after the disciples see the reemergence of the Christ figure, aka E.T., they're in awe. So now comes the emergence of Elliot, who is his top disciple, aka his top apostle, aka NEFERTEM, his quote-unquote spiritual son.
And we're taking him to a spaceship.
Well, can't you just beat him up?
This is reality, Greg.
Oh boy. once again, brothers, you know, you see so much in these movies, at least I do, since I've become an adult. You know, these were like childhood classics, childhood favorites for me. But then I go back and I watch a lot of these movies over again, and you see so many things that you missed out on because you just never knew. So, brothers, now we're at one of the more momentous moments in the film. The moment at which Pan, aka E.T., sprinkles the pixie dust on the Lost Boys and gives them the ability to fly. Once again, their bicycles are supposed to be representations of the broomsticks of the witches. So let's see what happens here. That's a hell of a close-up, ain't it? I mean, goddamn, that's a face only a mother could love. Brothers, once again, the flight of these young boys is supposed to be, it's really a dual representation. Number one, of Peter Pan and the Lost Boys. And it's also of the flight of witches. The bicycles are broomsticks. I cannot repeat that enough. This basically was a vehicle that was used to promote witchcraft, a very early vehicle to promote witchcraft amongst children. Remember, the last time that they flew, the moon was out. Now the sun is out. Brothers, look, I've always stated that the sequence of shots showing the facial expressions on the Lost Boys was meant to intimate some level of an amorous interaction, as if it was almost the first sexual experience that they had. If you look at them sequentially, it's almost like a young boy losing his virginity. As I've stated already, Pan was also the god of pederasty, or man-boy love. The spaceship is the proverbial Merkaba, or the spirit vehicle. It's how you transport from the physical world to the spiritual world using your third eye. Another example of that was in the film Black Panther. If you remember, the leader of the Dora Milaje, she was flying the spacecraft that the Black Panther rode in, and she was seated in the lotus position, forming the yoni with both of her hands. Okay, so now, brothers, we're pretty much at the crescendo of the film now, and we have the final salutation between Elliot and E.T. They're going to bid each other adieu, and E.T. is also going to go about revealing who he actually is, how he was able to become manifested in the physical world, and how Elliot can communicate with him if he so chooses. So let's pay very close attention here. Now, E.T. is actually inviting Elliot to come to his planet, quote unquote planet. Now, we know that it's not literal. It must be figurative, because how are we to assume that the atmosphere on E.T.'s planet would be a place or a realm where Elliot could survive? It's very clear that E.T. is talking about the other dimension, the other side of the mirror, the aka Neverland or Wonderland or Oz. Now, brothers, you see this? As they're bidding one another farewell, they do that same hand signal of Harpocrates, putting the index finger over the mouth. Now, brothers, do you see how he illuminated his index finger and he put it right in between Elliot's eyebrows? He's trying to convey to him, this is how you contacted me last time. You contacted me through your third eye. That's how you opened up the portal the last time. It just goes to show you that this entire film was just a metaphor for Elliot being able to make contact into the spirit world and conjure up the spirit, or the quote unquote goblin as he's called in the film, who was actually Pan, or PTAH-MIN. So as we just heard, E.T. tells him, I'll be right here. So I mean, what else could this film be about other than quote unquote 0 point energy, which is the same plot of the film Alice in Wonderland. It's the same plot of the film Wizard of Oz. Remember, in order for Dorothy to go from Kansas or Middle Earth to Oz, she has to travel through the whirlwind. The whirlwind is basically an analogy for the 0 point, which are basically two triangles, one of them upside down, and they both meet at their epicenter. That point at which they meet is the 0 point. That's the reason why Kim, or Min, has the symbol of the X across his chest. It represents transformation. Once you meet at that 0 point, which is the nexus of those lines, that intersection, you transform, because you go from one realm to another. You go from one person to another. You're a liminal being, and you pass through a liminal portal, a threshold. Well, I have to give Steven Spielberg credit for being able to very craftily design a film where, they could bring forth a lot of the spiritual beliefs of Hollywood pertaining to the Babylonian Kemetic Mystery School system and just couch it as a children's film. Very interesting. Okay, so brothers, we're at the very end of this film, and E.T. is going to traverse the physical plane back into the spiritual plane via the quote-unquote Rainbow Bridge or the Serpent Bridge. Once again, brothers, it's the same concept as in the film Thor, the quote-unquote Rainbow Bridge or the Bifrost.